you, Dean. Congressman Zubiri mentioned Thailand. But Congressman Zubiri also didn't mention that one of the reasons why Thailand's economy really shot up was because of the so-called taxonomics. Prime Minister Thaksin implemented the taxonomic strategy where he invested about 1 million baht per village out of the 60,000 villages. Why do I know? Because I talked with him when I was the National Security Advisor, and that is the key. One of the reasons why Thailand has prospered so much compared to the Philippines, not to mention the fact that Thailand has a tourism arrival of 15 million tourists. That is quite a big factor. And that must be cranked in when we evaluate why Thailand is progressing so well compared to the Philippines. With respect to the diaspora, we have to remember that this is now a global economy. When a graduate offers himself to the employment community, it is not only the Philippine community, but he must address the entire world. This is now a generation of expats. There are Filipino expats, for example, running companies in Indonesia. Some of them are running financial institutions in Hong Kong. Some of them may be working as factory workers in Taiwan, in Korea. There is nothing wrong with that because we are now in the global economy. Why are we criticizing this when this is the same economic strategy that has helped the Chinese economy, the Indian economy, the Irish economy, the Greek economy? Back in the 1970s, the Greeks adopted an economic strategy where they exported about 20% of their population. And after several years, they benefited so much from this Greek diaspora. And of course, the same with Italian, the same with the German diaspora, etc., etc. Now, on the 500,000 abortions, I'm not sure about this figure because they've been talking about 500,000 abortions for about 10 years already. If this is correct, that means that 5 million women have had an abortion. Today, ladies and gentlemen, there are only about 20 million childbearing women in the Philippines. If that is the correct figure, that means that 1 out of 4 women in the Philippines today have had an abortion. I don't think that is correct. I think that is an exaggerated figure, and the figure was generated by the so-called Macro Institute, which is a rapidly pro-RH group. Now on classrooms, of course the answer to classrooms is to provide more money for classrooms. What is happening to the budget of the Department of Education? While the absolute number, the absolute amount in pesos is increasing, the relative percentage is decreasing over the years. Of course, it's still the #1 budget as far as all departments are concerned, but the percentages is decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. So the answer to that is to increase the budget of the Department of Education. The solution, we are in a situation where we have to divide the pie. It seems to me that the solution of the RH people is to reduce the number of people sharing the pie. To me, the better solution is to increase the pie. That was done by Korea, that was done by Taiwan, that was done by Hong Kong, that was done by a lot of other countries through correct leadership and through correct economic strategy. Congressman Zubiri said that in the 50s and in the 60s, the Philippines was #2 in Asia. That is correct. That was also the time when the population growth rate was at its highest. In other words, the population growth rate was not an impediment to economic growth rate because at that time, it is very possible that we were adopting the correct economic strategy, but then in the 70s, in the 80s, something wrong happened. We started the economic journey together with Taiwan, with Korea. Those two countries would settle with more encumbrances. They had a higher population density, but in spite of that, they progressed. Why? Because of correct economic strategy. On agriculture, I don't think there's anything wrong if a country, for example, is reducing its agricultural capability. I would like to quote a farmer's party list member, Congressman Montemayor, who said, why should you confine the farmers to becoming farmers all their life? We also would like to work in factories. In fact, the best example is Parañaque. Parañaque used to be an agricultural town. in the 50s and even in the early 60s. But because of correct economic strategy by the leaders of Parañaque today, Parañaque came out as one of the leading industrial cities in the Philippines, now one of the leading commercial and residential cities of the Philippines. I don't think the people of Parañaque would like to remain as agricultural people the way they were in the 50s. They would rather that the agricultural activities be done in Vietnam, in Thailand, instead of becoming confined as rice farmers, which used to be the case in the 50s as far as Parañaque is concerned. Now, 5 children. The Golez family started, I belong to a 5 children family. At that time, my parents were just ordinary government employees. If the RH people would have decided our fate, maybe they would say, the Golez family would deserve only 2 children. And number 2, so I'd say, okay. But number 3, number 4, number 5 would not be okay. Number 3 graduated from UP. Number 4 graduated from the Philippine Military Academy. Number 5 graduated from the Philippine Military Academy. Number 4 became the chief of the Philippine Navy. If we listened to the RH people during that time, then the Golez family would not have produced the flag officer in command of the Philippine Navy. So why decide on this? And responsible parenthood. I ask the question, who is more responsible? Someone who would raise 5, 6 children and make them professionally successful, or someone who would raise only 1 child because he's afraid of responsibility, or no child at all because he does not want any responsibility? Perhaps the best example, ladies and gentlemen, is today the Secretary of NEDA, Cayetano Paderanga. Cayetano Paderanga comes from a family of 16 children. Poor families from the land of in Mindanao. 16 children. They were ordinary people there, but because of the responsibility, the sense of responsibility of the parents of Mr. Paderanga, they all became professionally successful. And to those people who are saying that it is not healthy for a woman to bear 16 children, Mrs. Paderanga lived up to the ripe age of 90 years old. And the father lived up to about 80. So all of these things would be a situational thing. It would all depend on the person. So again, I'd like to, and then finally on Cabral. I would like to say that Secretary Cabral said, well, there are bad side effects, like breast cancer. There are good side effects, like making ovary healthy, etc., etc. But as I said, how would you cope with the good side effects when you're already saddled by breast cancer? So it's a matter of choice. Again, I'd like to repeat, all the medical materials point to the fact that the oral contraceptives increase the risk of breast cancer. So that's all I'd like to say. I'd like to congratulate Congressman Zubiri for being the better debater compared to the one that we